Senator, Donald Trump this week visited Mexico, met with the president there, and gave a very fiery speech in your state of Arizona. At the end of the week, what do you think the net result is of those two actions?
Well, the speech in Mexico and that action, I think all of us had some hope after that he might be changing the tone and tenor of his campaign. But then when the speech was delivered in Arizona later that day, he seemed to be right back where he has been.
What's your understanding of how he's going to handle the estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants in America?
You know, that's not clear at all. Some people, as he said it was hardening. Some said softening. I say it was just confusing. There really isn't any, any clear indication of whether or not, for example, kids who were brought across the border when they were 2 years old, the so-called dreamers, whether they would be forced to go back to Mexico, and if there would be visa slots for them to return to the United States if they so choose later on. So it really is unclear right now.
You have been a part of the immigration discussion in Washington. You spent a lot of time on the issue. With that experience and listening to the speech that Donald Trump gave in Arizona, how do you think his immigration plan, which he plans to kick off the minute he gets in office, how would that be received in Washington? What would those early days and months of his administration be like?
Well, any serious immigration reform has to include 4 elements. Obviously, border security. Donald Trump has talked quite a bit about that, although just really one element, building a wall and making Mexico pay for it. That's not a very serious policy in and of itself. But then you've got to talk about interior enforcement, having an E-Verify style system to allow employers to know who they're hiring. And then you've got to have a robust temporary worker program, both for skilled and unskilled labor. He's talked very little about that. And then the mechanism to deal with those who are here illegally now. And that has been just kind of muddied at best.
If you talked about the tone and tenor of his campaign. We've had this conversation, you and I, before. Since then, Donald Trump has made a bit of a pivot. He said he regretted some things. He's tried to change this position on the undocumented workers. He's also kind of layered over his view about not allowing new Muslim immigration. Has any of those moves done anything to change your thinking about him as a president?
Well, I'd like to see him stick with some of those positions for a while. The ban on Muslims, he does seem to have walked back. He's talking more about regions or visa, vetting process. That seems to be better. I'm glad to see that. With regard to immigration, he pivots and then pivots right back. So it's kind of a 360-degree pivot at times. So I'd like to see a firm position that he sticks with for a while. And obviously, I'd like to see it a more realistic position in dealing with those who are here illegally now.
You've said a version of that before. Given how long you've held this position, aren't you really at a point of no return in terms of ever supporting him?
Well, it becomes increasingly difficult to see that he's going to change. So I don't expect that I'll be able to support him in November. And I'd like to. He's the Republican nominee. I just don't see how I can.
And you've advised other Republican senators running, including John McCain in your state, to distance themselves from Donald Trump. John McCain, in an ad, appears to be doing that, saying he'll be a check against Hillary Clinton. Is he taking your advice?
No, I wouldn't suggest he's taking my advice, but he's doing what I think Republicans need to do. If we want the future of our party to be what it needs to be, we can't associate with this kind of message, and certainly with this kind of tone and the rhetoric that's being used. Long term, I think that drives away young voters. It certainly drives away a lot of people in the minority community that we're going to need moving ahead. So I think John McCain and others are doing exactly what they need to do.
Hillary Clinton has been saying that Donald Trump is not a part of the Republican Party. She's been saying there are Republicans who are not like him. Does that actually help Republicans who are trying to win in the same year he's running as president?
It probably does, for anybody to say that. For people to be reminded that this is not what the party stands for, I think is a good thing. I wish more Republicans would say that as well. But if Hillary Clinton wants to say it, I'm glad people and voters are being reminded of it anyway.
And finally, quickly, Senator, Hillary Clinton spending money in Arizona, thinks it's competitive in the general election. Is that just trickery, or do you think Arizona is really up for grabs in the presidential contest?
It shouldn't be up for grabs. Mitt Romney won it by, I think, 8 points. But frankly, it is. I think that they're spending money because they have some indication that she might be in play. And unfortunately, I think that's the case.
And is that just about Hispanic voters, or is there any other part of the vote that's at play here?
No, it's not. It's not just about Hispanic voters. I've always said that independents, swing voters, and others expect the major party candidates to have serious policy proposals. And with regard to immigration, just saying that you're going to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it is not a serious policy proposal, and I think most Arizonans know that.
All right, Senator Jeff Flake, we appreciate you being with us. Thanks so much, and we'll be back in a minute.